that team behind you, LSU, they've got a matchup with USC in Vegas. That's
Yeah.
going to be a fun one in week 1.
Oh, it's going to be a
And
blast.
very similar situations. You mentioned Caleb Williams moving on as a Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels moving on as a Heisman Trophy winner. So
Exactly.
less proven quarterbacks having to fill in for those two guys.
That's, I think, going to be such an intriguing matchup, and I think a really great measuring stick, really, for both teams. You just said it. Two teams that had horrible defenses last year, that had elite quarterbacks and elite offenses, now trying to figure out what they are and what their identities are, moving on after those quarterbacks, moving on after each of their respective defensive coordinators. Alex Grinch at USC and a Matt House at LSU. It's a measuring stick game, really, I think, for both teams. And I think there's a lot of pressure on Brian Kelly for this one for a few reasons. First reason is LSU fans don't expect this offense to take huge steps back, which sounds ridiculous, right? You lose Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., two first-round wide receivers. You lose a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and a top 3 pick in Jaden Daniels. Like, you should probably expect the offense to take a step back, but that's not the expectation at LSU. LSU fans expect Garrett Nussmeier to take over that role. He's been at LSU for the last 3 years. He knows the offense. He's been around. He's poised and ready to take over this job. And it's just plug and play at the wide receiver position at LSU. Kyron Lacey is a name that I don't think is necessarily a household name amongst college football fans quite yet, but I think that he will be. Fast forward to November and December, I think that everybody is going to know Kyron Lacey. Mason Taylor at the tight end position is coming back for his 3rd year, was dealing with injuries last year, but he was the one as a true freshman that caught the 2-point conversion against Alabama. I think his role in the offense will continue to grow. I think LSU comes in with one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines, not just in the SEC, but in the country. When you have Will Campbell at left tackle and Emory Jones at right, 2 3-year starters that are coming back, a lot of continuity on the offensive line. So there's pressure, I think, on the offense. Obviously, it's going to look different because the run game's going to be different. Jaden Daniels was the run game. Garrett Nussmeier isn't as mobile of a quarterback, isn't as nearly of a mobile quarterback as Jaden Daniels. So it's going to look different, but I think LSU fans still expect gaudy numbers and, high scoring games from this LSU offense. There's pressure on Brian Kelly to win an opener. Like, he hasn't done that at LSU. I understand he's only been there for 2 years. You open with Florida State in 2022, the special teams disaster of LSU, you lose that game. Turn around 2023, you lose in Orlando against Florida State. Those games really could have been the difference between LSU being in the college football playoff conversation and not. Let's not forget, in 2022, they won the SEC West. Had they won that game against Texas A&M, had they beaten Florida State at the beginning of the season, we could have seen LSU in the college football playoff. There was a path there. So I think for Brian Kelly, there's a lot of pressure this year to get off on the right foot, to get things started early and to get a win on the board early, because the schedules don't get any easier throughout the rest of the season. Surely doesn't for Lincoln Riley and the Trojan brass either now in the Big Ten.
I'm going to take off a little bit more on Brian Kelly because I think you can give us a little bit more here because, of course, 3 years ago, if we would have made a list of LSU potential head coaches, nobody would have gotten to Brian Kelly because it just seemed like the oddest fit in the world. And of course, he had the whole dialect issue with the video that went viral and all that. But then he seemed to settle in, and it seemed like a lot of LSU fans took to him in that, okay, we've had some clownery around here, some head coaches that weren't necessarily adults in the room like Ed Ogeron and Les Miles, and this guy is buttoned up, he's runs an organization. But now it is year 3, so there is some pressure, an expanded playoff, and I got to think that might be the dividing line of success versus non-success, is simply get us to the playoff.
I think that's fair. And I think that's really the expectation with the LSU fans this year. And there might be some people listening thinking that's absolutely crazy. Expectation is the college football playoff. Well, one, welcome to life at LSU. That's going to be the expectation. They're going to be high every single year. But I also think that we need to start changing our mindset about what a college football playoff team really is. Because if an SEC team wins 10 games, I think that's enough to get you in the playoff. I think it should be enough to get you in the playoff, especially looking at who LSU would have to beat in order to get to that 10-2 threshold. That probably involves a win over USC in week 1 in Vegas. That probably involves a handful of wins, whether it's at the Swamp or against Alabama at home or on the road at Texas A&M or at home against UCLA. Big time, big name games on LSU's schedule. 10-2 should get you to the playoff. And 10-2, I think, is a fair expectation for this team because LSU has gone 9-3 in the regular season the last 2 years. You need to start to build upon that. And those expectations might be unfair because Brian Kelly was ahead of schedule. Brian Kelly won 10 games, games in the regular season, and bowl game win, and a trip to the SEC championship in year 1. Brian Kelly won 10 games, including the bowl game in year 2 with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. But the defense was so terrible. The special teams was so terrible in 2022. This feels like the year that everything needs to click. This feels like the year that Brian Kelly has the coaching staff figured out. He brings Blake Baker over from Missouri to be the defensive coordinator. Blake Baker was actually at LSU not too long ago and kind of completely transformed that linebacker room. Well, now it's going to be his job and his responsibility to turn this defense around. One of the worst defensive units in the country last year. They bring in Bo Davis from Texas, widely regarded as one of the best defensive line coaches in the country. They bring in Kevin Peoples, also widely regarded as one of the best edge and defensive line coaches in the country. So I think, yeah, you have the defensive coaching staff figured out, at least on paper. You have a quarterback taking over as the starter year 1, but has a ton of experience and knowledge of the expectations and the offense. You have some of these players that are settling into new roles, but all of these players settling into new roles are awfully experienced. I think the biggest question for LSU this year is there enough talent up front on the defensive line? You have the coaching, but do you have the talent to be able to compete at an SEC level? And that's really the biggest question to be able to really answer if this team is a college football playoff team or not, because those are the expectations.
Is LSU and Blake Baker going to cut him loose, meaning Harold Perkins this year, going to let him be him?
So they are putting him on the inside. And it's a decision that myself and so many other LSU fans, and really just whether you're an LSU fan or not, a college football fan, a decision that we've all questioned. Why are you doing that? Harold Perkins played on the inside game 1 of 2023 against Florida State. Anybody notice Harold Perkins in that game? I didn't. I the only reason why I noticed him was because I didn't notice him. And I asked myself, where is he? Why are they letting Jordan Travis run free? Where is the Harold Perkins that we've all grown accustomed to just be frankly a pain in the ass for every other offensive coordinator in college football? He was rendered useless essentially on the inside. So they moved him back out kind of into like a hybrid kind of linebacker last season, but his freshman year where he worked best was on the edge as a spy and frankly wherever he felt like being. It was really just see ball, get ball, see quarterback, get after quarterback, where Harold Perkins was so effective. And Brian Kelly has explained it that he is best, he'll be a better NFL fit if he has a defined role at inside linebacker, that they feel like that's where his skills are best. I look at it and I say, your job's not to develop him for the NFL. Your job is to win football games. And of course, you want to develop players for the NFL along the way. Absolutely. That's where LSU has really built a massive reputation as a place to go for some of the top recruits in the country, is because we can develop you for the NFL. But if Harold Perkins can help LSU win football games by flying around and doing whatever he wants, then let him do that, because we've seen him on the inside before. And frankly, it didn't look natural.
I'm right there with you. Caroline Fenton, you can catch her on SiriusXM and Yahoo Sports. And again, one more time so people can lock in specifically on what you've got going on, Caroline.
Yeah. So I am doing college football coverage for Yahoo Sports. You can find live shows throughout the college football season on Tuesdays and Saturdays. I'll be doing daily Yahoo Sports podcasts, and in the mornings from 8 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on SiriusXM SEC Radio Channel 374.
Caroline, thank you so much for being here. You have a great day.
Appreciate it.